time to re-up YouTube. Your boy Young Mustard is back with another banger, and I have to talk about Joel Embiid. Now, I understand a lot of things went into the loss that the Sixers suffered in Game 7 yesterday, but with the amount of energy that I've been giving some of these players that aren't even as good as Joel Embiid in the regular season or playoffs, I think it's only fair that I give Embiid the slander that he rightfully deserves. You guys like, share, comment, and subscribe to the channel. I've been doing really well lately with the likes, so you guys keep it up. It helps me out with the algorithm a ton. But without further ado, let's talk about how Joel Embiid has become arguably the biggest choker in the NBA today. Now, I love Joel Embiid, especially as an African brother myself. I'm always gonna root for my fellow Africans. But unfortunately, I have to be objective on this channel and give the same energy to anybody who deserves it. And from the moment that the playoffs started, Embiid was one of the guys on the list that I was praying I didn't have to come to. Because year in and year out, there are a list of excuses for somebody like Joel Embiid. Oh, Brett Brown just wasn't a great coach. Doc Rivers folded. Ben Simmons passed on Trae Young. Embiid has an injury. And look, this year, there are definitely some things you can point to like Doc Rivers, James Harden, or Embiid's knee injury. But I truly do believe that Embiid's injury wasn't too severe to the point that it affected him as badly as a lot of people are trying to make it seem. He was still moving out there pretty fine. I mean, the man was jumping like Spider-Man to block shots, so I don't want to hear anything about his inefficiencies being put all in the knee injury. And in the case of Doc Rivers, I personally don't believe that he has that much to do with this loss, especially in Game 7. I mean, you could point to a few adjustments he could have made earlier on in the series, but in a Game 7 like this, it's very clear that your stars have to carry you to victory, as we saw on the Celtics side of it with Jason Tatum dropping 51 points. Now, that then leads to the other excuse that I know so many people are going to make. What about James Harden? He sold and underperformed just as badly as Joel Embiid did. And to that, I agree. Joel Embiid and James Harden deserve blame, not just one or the other. But for one, this video is not about James Harden, it's about Joel Embiid. And two, say what you want about James Harden's stinkers, but James Harden was arguably the biggest reason why it went 7 in the first place. So say what you want about these excuses that you could throw out there to counteract anything that I say about Joel Embiid in this video, but I personally think those arguments hold little weight. So now that we've gotten those goofy excuses out the way, let's talk about Joel Hans Embiid. Now, as I said in the introduction, I take no pleasure in slandering my fellow African brother, but it is a must and I have to be consistent on this channel. Embiid's playoff underperformances over the last 3 to 4 seasons have been so alarming, and it's crazy to me how when people would argue Embiid versus Jokic, they would point out Jokic's playoff failures before they got to Embiid's. Meanwhile, Jokic is the playoff riser and Embiid is the playoff dropper. Embiid year in and year out has some of the same exact issues in the postseason, and now there truly isn't a scapegoat for him. You can't blame this on Ben Simmons' inability to shoot the ball or Brett Brown not being a good enough coach. At the end of the day, this is on Joel Embiid. Embiid went from an MVP season performance of 33 points a game, leading the league in scoring, along with 10 rebounds and 4 assists, 2 blocks, shooting 55% from the field, 86% at the free throw line, and a true shooting percentage of 66% nearly, to then a postseason in which he drops all across the board on schedule like he does every year, with averages of 24 points a game, just short of 10 rebounds, shooting 43% from the field, 18% from 3, and a true shooting percentage of 56%. On surface, he is a dropper this year, and he's a dropper usually every other year. And as I said earlier, I don't think that injuries are truly a fair out for Joel Embiid in this situation and conversation. So unlike other years, you can't really blame this on injuries. This is just a part of who he is, a playoff dropper. And outside of just the stats, if you watch the game, it only aids the argument that he is a playoff dropper to another degree. On the defensive side of the ball, I'll give Embiid props for actually rising to the occasion usually in the postseason. He has lateral quickness to keep up with some guards and perimeter players, even though I wouldn't call him like a Bam Adebayo or Triple J, but his main efforts obviously come as a rim protector. He's good also in help, a really solid shot blocker at the rim, and even though they won Game 1, if you go back and look at how the Celtics were getting a majority of their points, it was just layup lines at the rim. And past that game, excluding Game 7 of course, where they just bitched them all over the place, the Celtics struggled to get anything in the paint because of how effective Joel Embiid was as a rim protector. But outside of his defensive efforts, oh my god, Joel Embiid dropped all across the board like I said. Embiid as a decision maker pales in comparison to not only a guy like Nikola Jokic, but even some other stars in this league that are not even on his level. Time after time after time, Embiid misses obvious reads to so many players in positions to score. Whether they're in the dunker spot wide open, or they're on the perimeter waiting for a three-point shot to spot up, or there's a cutting opportunity that he just turns his head to, Embiid's ability to just process defensive coverages and use those coverages to his advantage to create open shots for his teammates, he simply is not willing or just flat out incapable of doing so. There are just a few times where he can make those reads, but they're just too basic enough. He doesn't make any type of advanced reads whatsoever, and at times he falls for the defensive traps. Whether it's him just forcing a shot through a double team, or he passes it out of bounds because he misses the guy he's actually trying to throw it to, or he just flat out waits there until somebody comes with a basic swing pass to the right, which is usually James Harden or Tyrese Maxey or whoever it is. Embiid as a decision maker is just not good enough to be your #1 option down the stretch of these postseason games. The processing speed pales in comparison to not only a guy like Nikola Jokic, but plenty of other players that are in the top 10 below his tier, or even outside the top 10, I would even say. And it's crazy to me that so many people thought Embiid had improved in his playmaking ability. They thought that because he could do it against Nicholas Claxton and Royce O'Neal, even though he wasn't really that great in that series either offensively, they thought because he could have done it against some team that barely snuck into the playoffs and avoided the play-in, that all of a sudden he was going to go against one of the top 5 to 10 defenses in the NBA, the Boston Celtics, and do it against them. Let's be serious here. Then you throw in the fact that Embiid simply was just not aggressive enough in these situations. If you look at the closing part of Game 6, that was unacceptable. I mean, in the last 6 or 7 minutes, Joel Embiid didn't even get a single shot up. And I don't want to hear anything about coaching, because at the end of the day, Joel Embiid is the MVP of the NBA. He is who the organization is building around as the face of their franchise. If he wants touches in the paint, on the block, wherever he wants it, he can get those touches and call for the ball. I mean, I understand that fossil Al Horford is locking you up in the fourth quarters, but that doesn't then mean you shy away from the big moment. Be aggressive, be relentless as a scorer, and that's what separates him from a guy like Giannis, who, even though Giannis has folded in the big moments down the stretch of games, he's still a relentless attacker of the basket. He's always going to usually end up with 30 or 35 points, like in Game 5 when they lost to the Heat. He had 38 and 20 because he was still aggressive and relentless. And in that moment where they had home court advantage of Game 6 up 3-2, that was the worst possible time for him to resort to being Domantas Sabonis. At the end of the day, Joel Embiid is simply not on the level of guys like a Giannis or Nikola Jokic or Steph Curry. In the case of Giannis and Steph Curry, they have translated their games in the postseason to eventually win a championship. And sure, Jokic hasn't even made an NBA Finals, but he is consistently a playoff riser every year. Hell, look at what he's doing this postseason as proof of it. In the case of Joel Embiid, he still has the exact same type of flaws that he had going back to 2018 against the Celtics, where he folded ironically against Al Horford again. And as a side note, I wasn't even going to address this, but then I hopped on Twitter while I was editing the video, and it just doesn't seem like Joel Embiid even cared about Game 7. Not only do you have the quote of him basically trolling the media about Giannis's steps to success when they asked about his loss to the Celtics after Game 7.
Someone said it was not a failure, steps to success.
And look, I'm not one for psychic evaluations here. I don't know what's going on in this guy's mental. Embiid is obviously a very motivated player to succeed. Just look at his life story. It can tell you that in itself. But just seeing his demeanor in some of these moments was definitely a little alarming. Now, unlike others, I'm not willing to just completely give up on Joel Embiid, but when you combine his health along with his issues in the playoffs as a player, and consider that he is 30 years old, the clock is ticking faster than ever for his ability to win a championship as a #1 option. And considering that he hasn't even made the conference finals yet at this stage in his career, I would understand why people don't even look at him as a top 5 player. I mean, outside of Jokic, Curry, and Giannis, would you take him over a Luka Doncic? Would you take him over a Kevin Durant, a LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Jimmy Butler, Jason Tatum? The guys I've mentioned have proven that they can step up in the postseason consistently with not only conference finals appearances or finals appearances, just championships, finals MVPs, but just the ability to step into these moments and rise to the occasion. Joel Embiid has never done that in his career, and it really sucks that this year he chose to play this poorly again, because not only is it another disappointing season for Embiid losing in the second round and not making the conference finals again, but this was supposed to be your year to show us why you deserved that MVP. Now, me personally, I do believe it's stupid for people to invalidate somebody's MVP based off of what happens in the postseason. But at the end of the day, bruh, you are the MVP. You were voted as the best player of this regular season because of your efforts leading the league in scoring and playing so great on the defensive side of the ball. And yet, once again, you have reinforced in people's minds that you are nothing more than just a regular season performer. And this time, there's no Ben Simmons that you can point to. There's no valid injury, in my opinion, that you could point to. There's no Brett Brown this time. This is all on you. You didn't step up, plain and simple. And like I said earlier, Embiid is not getting any younger. And with the Sixers potentially on the verge to lose James Harden, primarily to the Houston Rockets, which would just be insane for him, I ain't gonna lie. But with Harden leaving just being a mere possibility, the Sixers' future really looks shaky, I ain't gonna lie to you. But hey, that's a convo for another video. Trust me, we are gonna get to that. But before we wrap this up, you guys already know the drill. The question of the day, which is, can you believe that Joel Embiid can win a championship as the #1 option? Yes or no? Then I also want to know why. I really want to know what you guys think, so let me know down below in the comment section. But you guys make sure you subscribe to the channel and press that bell for post notifications to stay up to date with the latest content on this channel. These playoffs have been crazy, and I appreciate the support that you guys have shown over the last couple of weeks. Expect more content on my main channel, second channel, and even obviously on the Off the Grid podcast. Subscribe, the link is down below in the description box. This is your boy Young Mustard signing out. You guys stay safe and have a blessed day. Peace.